These days, many men over the age of 50 are choosing to live alone. They no longer see it as a failure or the result of a broken relationship. For them, being single is a conscious decision. It's a way to protect their peace, stay true to their values, and follow a clear sense of purpose. In today's world, relationships often come with pressure and compromise. At this stage of life, many men no longer want to be caught up in all of that. They choose to step back. They choose to live alone, not out of loneliness, but because they've come to understand what truly matters. But why is this happening? Why are so many older men today choosing to stay single, rather than keep searching for love in the traditional way? This isn't just about individual choices. It reflects a quiet but profound shift happening in our society. Gender roles are changing. The way people view love and connection is changing too. Ideas about happiness and what it means to have a full life are being redefined. This conversation isn't just for men. It also helps women gain a deeper understanding. Many men at this age won't say it out loud, but they're slowly stepping back. They're walking away from the emotional game, not because they're hurt, but because they've come to see things more clearly. Once we understand that, we stop judging. We begin to listen more. We begin to feel more compassion. This video will share 18 reasons why more and more older men are choosing to live alone. Each reason reveals a piece of the inner journey. Some reasons are rooted in the past. Others come from maturity and a sense of calm. There is no judgment here, only a clear and honest look at what's really going on. Let's walk this journey together, a journey toward peace, freedom, and meaning in the later chapters of life. Part 1. The social and psychological landscape of older men. Over the past few decades, the role of men in society has changed significantly. They are no longer seen simply as financial providers or bearers of responsibility. The rise of gender equality, along with the cultural shift toward individualism, has led many men to ask themselves, where do I truly belong in a relationship? In the past, they were taught that their value came from their ability to provide. But today, that's no longer enough. Modern expectations ask them to be more sensitive, more adaptable, and at times to suppress traits that are deeply rooted in masculine nature. This leaves many feeling disoriented or uncomfortable when entering a traditional relationship. Alongside these societal shifts, the psychology of a man over 50 also begins to change. This is a time for reflection. Many have gone through painful experiences, divorce, loss in the family, or both. They've carried the weight of work pressures, financial burdens, fatherhood, and sometimes silent sacrifices within marriage. These experiences haven't made them weaker. They've made them more clear-minded. They know who they are. They're no longer easily swept into relationships that might cause more harm than good. They recognize what truly matters and what they can now let go of. That's why when an older man chooses to live alone, it's rarely a spur-of-the-moment decision. It's the result of years of living, observing, and learning. They no longer believe that having someone by their side is the only sign of success or happiness. Instead, they begin to prioritize freedom, peace of mind, and control over their own life. In this context, being single is not a form of emptiness. It is a different kind of fulfillment, a space where a man can be fully himself, no longer performing, no longer holding it all in, and no longer enduring things just for the sake of being with someone. Part 2. 18 reasons why older men choose to stay single. 1. The pain of divorce. For many men, divorce is more than just the end of a relationship. It often comes with the loss of trust, finances, and even a sense of identity. They don't just lose a wife. Sometimes they lose their role as a father, their home, and the feeling of being themselves. The years that follow are often spent rebuilding from the ground up. That's why the thought of entering a new relationship can feel risky. They don't want to go through that pain again. They would rather live alone with peace and control than take another gamble with their emotions or their assets. In this case, being single is a shield to protect the heart. 2. Tired of the pretense in love. Many seasoned men feel that relationships today lack honesty. They've been with women who were sweet and gentle in the beginning, only to see things shift once the relationship became serious. The woman who once laughed at every story now complains all the time. The admiration turns into demands. What wears them down isn't the change itself, but the feeling that they were fooled by a performance in the early days. After living through that a few times, they choose to step away, not because they fear love, but because they no longer want to play a part in a script that feels too familiar. 3. Choosing peace over drama. At this age, the most precious thing is not passionate love, but peace of mind. Many men have lived through relationships filled with arguments, long-standing conflicts, and quiet pressure. They're tired of having to explain themselves, tired of trying to please someone, tired of carrying the emotional weight of another person every day. Now what they want is a quiet home, a morning without debates, an evening without tension. When they discover that being single brings them that kind of peace, they stop seeing it as loneliness. They begin to see it as freedom. 4. Tired of the emotional theater. There was a time when they believed love was everything. But over the years, they learned to tell the difference between real love and emotional dependency. Many relationships started to feel like a repeated play. First comes the passion, then the control, then the disappointment. They saw themselves acting out the same role in the same storyline again and again. Eventually, they decided to step off the stage. They don't need the applause. They don't need to be the star of the show. All they want now is a life that feels real, even if it means living it alone. 5. Masculinity being criticized. Many older men feel that their core nature is no longer respected. Traits that were once seen as valuable, like decisiveness, strength, and protectiveness, are now often labeled as toxic. They feel like they have to apologize just for being who they are. In relationships, they're unsure how to behave without being misunderstood. Over time, this creates a sense of not belonging. When someone is constantly criticized for simply being themselves, they begin to withdraw. For many men, staying single becomes a way to be themselves, without having to explain or defend it. 6. Looking for a teammate, not an opponent. They're not looking for someone to argue with about who's right or wrong. They don't want a relationship built on a constant power struggle. At this age, what they truly want is a companion, someone to share life with, not compete with. But the reality is, many relationships turn into quiet battles over control, ego, or who gets the final say. They're tired of that. They no longer want to fight inside their own home. If they can't find a true teammate, they would rather walk alone, because that feels lighter. 7. Done with one-sided relationships. In the past, they gave it their all, but eventually they realized that effort wasn't being returned. They were the ones keeping things going, making sacrifices, being the peacemaker, while their efforts were taken for granted. They began to ask themselves, does love need to come from both sides? And the answer is yes. When they no longer feel valued, they choose to step back. A good relationship takes two people showing up. If not, then being single starts to feel like the better option. 8. Recognizing their own worth. Men over 50 are no longer boys seeking approval. They know what they bring to the table. Experience, stability, calm presence. They don't chase admiration or flattery anymore. They know their own value. And because of that, they've become more selective. Not just anyone can enter their inner world. It's not about arrogance. It's about having learned how to protect what matters most. 9. Seeking purpose, not just appearance. Older men aren't drawn to looks the way they once were. They understand that a pretty face can't replace a meaningful connection. They're looking for someone who shares their values, who sees life through a similar lens, who can sit in silence with them and still feel close. Relationships based on physical attraction now feel shallow and hollow. They crave depth, not flash. And if they can't find that, they'd rather live alone, rich in their own inner world, than step into a relationship that feels empty. 10. Choosing single life if the right person never comes. At this age, they're no longer living to meet society's expectations or pressure to pair up. They understand that the wrong relationship can drain their health, emotions, and self-respect. They're willing to wait or not wait at all, but they refuse to settle. If a woman doesn't respect them, doesn't understand their life journey, then no matter how attractive or interesting she may be, they'll choose to walk away. Because peace of mind is far more important than having someone beside them who isn't right. 11. Finding peace in solitude. Many men have discovered that for the first time in their lives, they get to live on their own terms. No need to explain. No need to compromise. No interruptions from someone else's moods or expectations. They can spend an evening reading, sit quietly in stillness, wake up with the sunrise, and feel a lightness in their heart. That's not loneliness. That's wholeness. In a world where peace is rare, if being single brings that peace, why should they give it up? 12. Wisdom that comes with time. Time has taught them many lessons. They once rushed into love, entered relationships just to avoid being alone. Now they've learned to set boundaries. They know how to listen to their own feelings. They're no longer swayed by sweet promises or fleeting charm. They understand that true connection doesn't come from sparks and heat. It comes from steady kindness. They're more careful now, not because they've lost faith, but because they've learned the value of their time, their emotions, and their heart. 13. Done performing to be loved. When they were younger, many men tried hard to be the ideal partner. They learned to please, to hide their exhaustion, to push through just to be loved. But now they no longer want to do that. They don't need to be strong all the time. They don't need to smile on cue. They don't need to seem perfect. They just want to be real. And if a relationship doesn't allow them to be fully themselves, then it holds no meaning anymore. They'd rather be single than wear a mask for the rest of their lives. 14. Tired of the fake dating scene. Modern dating wears older men down. Shallow conversations, heavily edited photos, unrealistic expectations. It all makes them feel out of place. They're not looking for dates just to fill empty space. They want real connection, something honest, simple, and deep. But when that becomes too hard to find, they choose to step away. Not because they're closed off, but because they don't want to play a game they no longer believe in. 15. Lower desire for physical intimacy. For some, physical closeness is no longer a priority. It might be due to changes in hormones, health issues, or old wounds that haven't fully healed. They don't always feel comfortable sharing their body. They need time to heal. They need understanding, not pressure. To them, intimacy isn't just touch, it's emotional connection. And if that's missing, they prefer to protect their personal space. Being single helps them listen more clearly to what their body and heart are really saying. 16. Avoiding responsibility. Not every single man comes from a place of growth. Some choose to live alone because they don't want to carry responsibility. They avoid emotional, financial, or time commitments. To them, a relationship feels like giving up part of their freedom. But sometimes this also points to an area where they haven't fully matured. They're not yet ready to show up as a true partner. Still, it's a real reason, and it deserves to be seen clearly, not sugar-coated. 17. Fear of opening up again. Men who've been deeply hurt often build strong walls around themselves. On the outside, they seem fine, strong, even cheerful. But inside, they carry fear of betrayal, of being abandoned, of being misunderstood again. It's not easy for them to open up. It's not easy to let anyone in. It's not that they don't need love. It's that they fear love will hurt again. To open up, they need to feel safe. And that kind of safety is hard to find these days. So they stay quiet. They stay alone. And they wait if they still have hope. 18. No longer wanting to lead. In some cases, men step away from relationships because they're tired of always leading. They're worn out from having to make decisions, be the strong one, hold everything together. They choose simplicity, ease, a life without pressure. But if that goes on too long, it can turn into stagnation. They stop challenging themselves. They stay inside their comfort zone. And in that case, being single isn't really freedom. It's retreat, a quiet sign that it might be time to have an honest conversation with themselves. Part 3, meaning and impact. When an older man chooses to stay single, it's not simply a retreat from love. It reflects a shift in awareness. Many have experienced enough loss to understand that the wrong relationship can take more than it gives. Choosing to live alone, then, is not about giving up on happiness. It's about redefining it. For these men, happiness is no longer measured by having someone beside them, but by peace in their heart, clarity in their mind, and the freedom to live by their own values. This choice also raises important questions for women and for society. Women are sometimes surprised by how quiet and closed-off older men can be. But behind that silence is a long history of expectations, disappointments, and sacrifices that were never named. If a woman truly wants to be a companion, she must be ready to listen, without judgment, without trying to control. A relationship is no longer a place to prove who's right or wrong, but a space where both people can simply be themselves without fear. From a broader view, the decision of older men to remain single challenges traditional social norms. For generations, men were expected to marry, to lead, to provide. But when they begin to prioritize their emotional well-being and personal peace, they quietly rewrite what it means to be a man in today's world. They are no longer just doers. They become fully alive. Men who dare to choose differently, who dare to set boundaries, who dare to be alone. If that's what it takes to protect their inner peace, in the end, this is a message for both sides. To men, hold firmly to your values. Only open your heart when it feels safe to do so. To women, understand that a man's silence can sometimes be a quiet plea to be understood. And if the two of you meet, not to perform roles, but to walk side by side as your true selves, then that love, even if it arrives late, is still worth welcoming. Closing message. When we look back at the 18 reasons why older men choose to stay single, we begin to see that this is not about giving up on love. It's a journey of growth, a journey of awakening, when a man learns what wounds him and what brings him peace. Some choose to be alone because the past is too heavy. Some choose it because the present feels just right. Others may still be waiting for a true connection, but they are no longer willing to trade away their sense of self just to have it. All of these choices deserve respect because they don't come from fear. They come from deep self-understanding. At this age, men have nothing left to prove. They don't need to stretch themselves thin to be someone's other half. If love comes, they are ready. But if it doesn't, they still live fully, with books, with trees, with stillness, and with a rare kind of freedom that youth never quite offered. And this is also a gentle message for women. If you love a single man in the second half of life, see him through the lens of understanding, not expectation. Don't try to change him. Sit with him, listen with him, feel with him. Love after 50 is no longer about surface-level attraction. It's about soul connection, where two people come together, not to fill a void, but to walk forward together with grace and mutual respect. If you see yourself in these reflections, whether you are a man or a woman, we invite you to leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your story, your journey. And if you believe that conscious love is worth sharing, please pass this video along. Don't forget to subscribe to Light of Wise Elders so we can continue exploring these honest, soulful, and deeply human topics about life after 50 together, for a world where elders are not lonely, but heard one story, one reason, one breath at a time.